Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. We want to let you know that we have once again been honored with a nomination for the Hockey Podcast of the Year via the Sports Podcasting Awards. And all you need to do to help us is go to ourkidsplayhockey.com and click on the Vote Now button. It asks you a couple questions. You're in and you're out, and you have voted for us for Hockey Podcast of the Year. I want to thank you all for being a wonderful, wonderful audience and helping us get to this stature of hockey podcasting, because we've done it as a family, as the hockey friends and families around the world. Thanks so much and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, and I'm joined today by Michael Bonelli, who's been on almost every single episode we've done. Christy Casciona Burns is on assignment today. Got a great topic. We're talking about hockey summer camps, and not just the one-day ones. We're talking about the ones you go away to, overnight camp, or the ones where you drive your kid to the rink every day. You drop them off. They're there. They're skating the whole day. You pick them up later. They're exhausted. They're sweaty. They smell bad. You got to get them in the shower. They don't want to go in the shower, but you got to tell the teenagers, get in the shower. It'll make sense later. I'm trying to help you. Don't you understand that I'm trying? Okay, that might be a little bit of my angst as a parent. I don't have a teenager at home. Might as well at this point. Anyway, it's going to be a great episode. I'm going to basically interview Mike because I actually never went to a away camp, Mike, and I never really went to a full-time hockey camp. I did a lot of clinics growing up. But we wanted to talk about really how to prepare both as parents and as kids for an extended hockey camp of some sort. Because we know a lot of parents who listen to the show probably consider doing this, or their kids do it, or maybe they've done it themselves. So this is one of those kind of tips and tricks and hack episodes to prepare you for your kids' hockey camp on Our Kids Play Hockey. That was an extended intro brought to you by me. Mike, welcome to the show. Good to have you back.
Yeah, no, and I think I'm having now a little PTSD from my first hockey school experience. I think in Potsdam, New York, my parents dropped me off at the Howie Meeker Hockey School,
Right.
and said, "Hey, have fun for the week. We'll see you.
Right.
We'll see
Right.
you on Friday." At
What?
the at the end at the Friday, of course, it's like every hockey school ends, with a basically a scrimmage at the end, and then everybody goes home and you move on. But I would say I've had a lot of experience in hockey schools and working in hockey schools and working for some really bad ones and working for some really great ones. But I think just being prepared when you drop your kids off, whether it's sleepaway or, just opening the door and letting them out for the morning.
Right. Right. Well,
Something was so important to think about.
let's start with this. All right. And again, I'm sure there's parents on here that everybody ranging from, oh, I've done that before, to parents I don't even know there were camps, right? So like we should probably just set the table here that look, there are extensive go away, sleep away camps with unbelievable facilities out there. I mean, unbelievable, with lakes and dry land and on ice. I can't remember the one up in Michigan that like they have a whole facility based just around the camp. They do that year round. And then, everything down to just your local rink is having a day camp where your kid's on the ice twice a day. Maybe it's not as intense, and maybe that is more of a daycare type environment. And there's no judgment on either one. Some of these things cost stupid amounts of money. But Mike, why don't you just, again, was that a good walkthrough? And there's other ones in between, but there's varying levels to these types of camps.
Yeah, and it's different, right? It's different than walking into a 2-hour power skating clinic on a Wednesday night. This is something that, there really has to be some thought that goes into it, for success, for you want ROI, right? You're the bottom line, as you said, even the cheap camps, weekly camps aren't cheap.
Right.
And, whether they're in a great facility or not, the value is, can my child go through the week with the least amount of stress and the most preparedness, so that when they get to the rink, they can focus on the things that the camp is, in theory, supposed to be doing well, and that's teaching them, right? And making sure they're active and having fun. And that's some of the things that I try to talk with my parents about, is just making sure you prepare your kids the right way so that when you get there, you can get the most out of the camp that you put your kid in.
Right. So let's talk about it generically first, and then we'll break it down into kind of sleep away versus just the rink, right? Like going and dropping your kid off at the rink. But what are the 3 or 4 things that you have to have when doing this? I want to jump into one right away, though. That's your kid's got to want to go to this camp. right? Your kid's got to actively want to go to a camp. If you're a parent and I do want to squash this now. Like, oh, my kid needs more practice. Let me just drop him off at a hockey camp in the summer. That you got to really think about that because it's intense. There's a lot of ice time. Your kid might end up hating hockey if you're not careful, if they don't want to do this, right? So I think the first thing is you have to have a love for the game to the level of your kid is I want to go to this camp, right?
Well, and think about it from the camp's perspective, right? They don't want a kid there that's just going to sit in the stands and always say, "Oh, I don't want to go out," because what are they going to do? They're not going to put their effort into making and motivating that kid to get on the ice. The fact is, most camps are going to be like, "Okay, Tommy,
it's
get in the
behind.
corner.
Yeah.
We'll call you," and then you're getting a call at 10:30 in the morning. Mrs. Benelli, can you come pick up your kid because he doesn't want to play today? And then Tuesday and third. No, not the camps aren't there to motivate your child to get on the ice. They want a motivated kid that comes. Now,
babies.
yeah, they're not there to, and some camps are, and maybe that's something that maybe that's the first subject, right? Know your camp. Maybe is it a daycare camp? Is it a hockey school? Is it a place where your child's going to learn the sport of hockey and all the pieces that go into it? Or is it really, sold as there is a little hockey, there's a little swimming, there's a little field time, and at the end of the day, we just want to, carve up the daily schedule so your kid comes home tired. But that's fine. I mean, if that's the camp you signed up for, I think knowing the camp that you're signing up for, and we've talked about this on like how to pick hockey schools. Well, that's one of the main things is, okay, now you did pick your hockey school, just know the format and then live with the format because that's what you signed up for.
Right. Absolutely. And like I said, I think a well-rounded camp will have more than just hockey. I always said that, look, there should be options, in my opinion, right? Like in my daughter and son's camp, they have like choose time where like you can pick where you want to go right now, right? From what I've seen, most hockey-based camps have 2 ice sessions a day, lunch, right? And then it's what are you surrounding yourself with? Like I think a great camp will actually have the ability to play other forms of hockey or other sports even. The one I was thinking of was Heartland Hockey up north, right? Like you could play hockey all day there, or you could go to the lake all day, or you could jump off like their thing. They have like a roller coaster there. It's incredible. But I think you're right. You got to set your expectations of what you're doing, where you're going, why you're going there. And then you really want to take a look at who's running it and how, right? Because I've seen camps run by just high school kids, college kids, and like you have to have the expectation. Okay, there's probably going to be a lot of ice time and minimal instruction at a camp like that versus a camp where they have 15 celebrity guest coaches that are probably really going to dive into doing some stuff, right? So that tip one, maybe is set your expectation, know what you're getting into.
Yeah, and just like everything else we do on this podcast, it's all based off of your age and your ability, right? So
Absolutely.
if you have a 6-year-old going to hockey school, most likely it doesn't matter if there's 15 celebrity coaches there. Right. Like there's really no value for that.
Good point. Yeah.
So like, okay, great. I paid for these 7 ex-NHL players or current NHL players to be there, but I don't know if my son or daughter is even going to benefit from that. So, right. What's the expectation there? And then the other side of it is, okay, well, am I now going to a camp that really is focused on hockey? There is no swim time. There's no, free time because I'm 17 years old and I'm at a hockey camp or a school I'm specifically there to learn something that I'm going to come out of based off of the personalities that are there at the camp.
Yeah. Just to give some context in that from my point of view, like my son and daughter go to a camp. It's an inline facility, so there's 2 inline rinks, and hockey is part of the day, but they have so many options of football, swimming, fun. That's what I'm like getting towards. It's fun, and in fact, I've talked about this on the show before. My son's playing summer hockey, and I'm not even going because my attitude is, I just need him to enjoy playing right now. I don't want him to feel any pressure. I just want him to have fun this summer. If he wants to practice, great. Keeping in mind, everybody, he's 8 years old. We have new listeners all the time. He's not older, and he's just finding the game. So my goal is fun. When my kid comes out of summer camp or out of summer league, I just want them to, wow, that was a lot of fun at the younger ages. Because if they don't have that, it's just not going to last, right? If they come home with like, that was exhausting and horrible, like you got the whole season coming up, right? Like, I think this is an important point we got to make. Like the season is exhausting at the lower half of youth hockey, right? You need them rejuvenated when they go into the season, not exhausted mentally, right? I will say this too, Mike. Look, I made the most strides though technically, the technical stuff in the summer. Tactically, I made strides during the season, but I always looked at that 3 months off as, okay, I can work on this. Now I'm getting to like the 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old ages. But the summer is when I really want to work on this aspect of my game. I could totally see camps being great for that too, right? So I think you're right. From the might squirt even into Pee Wee, I just think it's got to be about having fun and getting in your strides and having fun. But you get to that middle age group, or the late high school age group, you could probably find a little bit more of a serious environment. Again, if your kid wants to do it, I think I'm going to keep coming back to that. But um, again, we should talk about the prep for all these too, because I think food is really important. I think understanding, you talked about equipment in the pre-episode. Like, you shouldn't get your kid new skates right before going to a 2 ice session a day camp where they're on the ice for 5 hours a day, because they won't be able to walk in a week.
Yeah. So my prep, I mean, really stems from safety first. So my prep usually with parents and the prep that I always appreciated was, let's go with worst case scenarios, right? You get dropped off, you're getting bullied in the locker room. There's no supervision. There's a coach that you don't feel comfortable with. There's something people are asking you to do that you don't feel comfortable with. It's you're in with kids, like, understand the guidelines the camp has. They allow they allow phones in the locker rooms. Like, are phones collected? Did your kid need a phone during the day? All these kind of things are things you need to ask about, especially more so in sleepaway camp than day camp, because I think you drop your kid off and we all, our hope and our expectations is that there is 18 professional, child psychologists, sports nutritionists, right, and physiology, experts that are there with our kids. And this is not the case. Like, it's mostly, young guys and girls,
college kids,
home from college. Most of them have great empathy. I love what they do with the kids, but at the same time, they're not trained to look for problems. They're not trained to look for conflict. They're not trained to say, like, even a lot of kids, like I've had a lot of guys and girls work for me that don't, like, they think like locker boxing is fun because, like, I don't know, that's what we did. Isn't that normal? Like, no, it's unacceptable, actually. And this is something you have to call people out on. So a lot of the preparation for camp is educating and sitting down with your child and talking about what could happen and then how to react to it.
Just in case, and again, it's because we have a wide variety of listeners, what locker boxing is, because I realize there's probably a lot of parents who have never seen that before, is
hopefully
kids will put on their helmets with the cage, their gloves, and fight in the locker room. And I mean, really fight. It's playful fighting in the sense that they're not trying to hurt each other most of the time, but you can get concussion very quickly with this thing. So it's boxing.
Well, no, and it's bullying. At the end of the day,
especially if they pick a kid.
It's usually not the two most popular kids on the team. It's usually somebody that they want to kind of be a predator towards. Yeah, and I think that's something you got to think about.
Yeah, parents don't. I wouldn't ask your kids if they've done this, but just know what it is, right? Because you don't want to plant the seed, though, because a kid would think that's a great idea. But yeah, Mike, it's a great point. I mean, look, there's always some counselors that stick out that they're going to do a great job, but most of the time these are summer jobs for a lot of college kids. And then there's the camp director too, right? Like, what do you look for in a camp director, Mike?
Yeah, well, number one is somebody that has great communication skills. Somebody that's visible. Like, there's so many camp directors, sometimes you don't even meet them. Like, like, well, who's running this camp, or who am I putting my kids in and know their background? Like, who am I putting? Like, I had this conversation the other day with somebody, like, the trust we have in bus drivers, right? You stick your kid on the bus and they go, and you trust that somebody did their background check on this person, that somebody understands that they don't get road rage, that somebody understands that they know to make sure kids are sitting down first on the bus, to make sure they understand they can look in the mirror and say, oh, that kid's getting bullied, or that kid's being targeted. I can react to that. Like, there's so much trust in that 15-minute ride. And I look at that from a hockey point of view. Like, I'm a parent that's dropping my son or daughter off at 8:00 in the morning. There's so much trust there. So knowing who your director is and meeting them, but understanding from the point of view that if you haven't been communicated to, that's like a red flag to me. Like, if you don't know who the people are or what their policies are on on locker room monitoring, or we'll get into all the other things that go into a hockey camp and the daily day-to-day sleepaway or day camp. But really, I really look for that. I look for the person who's the best communicator and the most visible, like somebody that's out there. Don't hide in your office until something happens, because then it's too late.
Right.
I want to know. I want to know what's happening. There's so many times where if I go up to a director and I say, "Hey, oh, you know what? I forgot to give Michael his water bottle. Could you tell me where he is right now?" And they're like, "I have no idea where he is." That's not good.
Right.
Like, to me, that's unacceptable. And
we said this too.
And a lot of people might say, "Oh, come on, that's ridiculous. How are we supposed to know? We're not babysitters." Well, in fact, you are a babysitter. For that 8 hours or 9 hours or 24 hours. You in fact are a babysitter. And listen, I had to do this at the highest level of USA Hockey regional camps. These are 14, 15, 16-year-old men, boys, that you need to know where they are, where they're going, who they're with, who's supervising them. There's buddy systems galore. Like, this is not just something you say, "Hey, you're going to be on the college campus for the next 4 days. Go at it. Make
What
sure
could go wrong in that scenario?"
Hope I meet you. Hope you're at the rink tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
there's so much stuff that goes on, and I think
you've heard that joke, right? How do you know a 15-year-old is lying? Yeah,
no.
They speak.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not true of everybody, obviously. It's a joke. But listen, Mike, a few points to tap on there. Like, number one, and we've said this on the show many times, there is absolutely no excuse in today's day and age for communication not to be easy for anybody. It has never been easier to communicate digitally via email. I mean, if I was a camp director, I would have a Zoom call for an hour, before just any parents have any questions. A lot of it is just making yourself available, whether they choose to use it or not. That's one thing. But even from just a legality standpoint, you want to be able to go on there and say, "No, we had meetings, we did this." Every great camp I've ever been to, the camp director, I knew who that person was. They were always very kind, but you also knew they were the disciplinarian. And I do not remember them not having a walkie-talkie or something, a communication device of some sort where they could communicate with everybody. So, like you said, where's the director? It was just, "Hey, where's Mike right now?" Right, and they'd be on. And by the way, there's camp director, associate directors. There's obviously there should be a structure.
But as long as you know whoever the person is, it's supposed to be your communication conduit, that they're available and active and there.
Right. That's a great point. And I love the analogy with the school bus talk, because it's a great point. We put a lot of trust in people sometimes blindly, or without much thought. All right, so let's get into this a little bit more. You're going to a camp, your kid's there. Let's just get the tips of what do you need your kid to have aside from their hockey equipment every day, or what should they be doing to prepare their hockey equipment? Because I'll tell you this right now, no kid wants to be the one that shows up and something's wrong with their equipment and they are uncomfortable on the ice. It does not go away. From the second you step on the ice, if your skates are not sharpened or something's wrong, it can really ruin your day, much less your week.
So I'll go through kind of my real quick checklist here, and then we can dive into anything you want to dive into from my point of view. But really, to your point, it's okay. Equipment first, right? We're going to hockey school, so let's make sure everything fits. I know, and my kids hate it, right? I'm making them try everything on, and making sure the buckles work, and making sure the Velcro's not dead, and all that kind of stuff. So equipment, helmet fits properly, it's comfortable, all the screws are in it. Nobody's because there's 5% of the hockey schools out there are going to be able to fix your helmet, because they're going, "Oh yeah, we got the helmet supply kit here, and we're going to open it up and fix your helmet." They're like, "Hey kid, I'm sorry to tell you," or they're going to send you to the pro shop and say, "Here, go buy a new helmet."
Yeah, and they're not going to make sure it fits right most of the time. Like, they're not going to even know how to look. Yeah,
that's not their job.
As a parent, that's your job. You got it
right. So I think that from equipment to neck guards, so underwear, right, and undergarments. Make sure you can't, if it's a sleepaway school, you have to know now whether your kid takes their stuff out of their bag or not, but make sure they know that they have multiple sets of stuff. Like, there's nothing worse than a kid ruining their week because they wore wet socks for the third time in a row, and then their feet are so blistered that and raw that they can't go for the next 6 hours of hockey training or field training or whatever it is. So, knowing that, you're getting the bag packed, it's just the basics. Equipment fits, skates fit, laces are new, You know, they're not going to break off in the middle of tying your kids' skates the first day. If you're really fortunate or have the ability, get multiple sets of steel for your kids that are sharpened and they're there so that you can, that because you're most likely you're not finding a place to sharpen your skates during hockey school, even day schools. So make sure that's there and available to you. And I think at the end, and then all the little pieces, like you said, the Velcro's working. Every hockey school says they're going to supply jerseys, but sometimes they don't. They're not there, and then your kid's sitting there go, "Well, I didn't pack a jersey because you said there was jerseys," and like, well,
right,
like you don't. So
now you got some yellow penny that looks horrendous. Yeah,
or you're out there without a jersey on. Like they just go out there. Your skin's today. So I think just all those little things, because you don't want, because think about it, especially like 15U. There's so much stress in being the kid that's not prepared, and your parents aren't there. Like there's nobody to turn to, and kids are vicious. The kid in the locker room next to you, like, dude, your shin guards are like, 4 inches too short. Like what the hell, little things like that. And I think there's, I would worry about that. Tape bag. Do they have enough tape in their bag? And then how are you going to deal with the fact that most likely the 4 kids around them don't have enough tape in their bag? Right. So that tape's going to get stolen and used. And so like to me, like it's funny we used to do a service when I was running hockey schools that the parents we called it a tape depository, where you would actually give us your tape and we would give it out to your kid as they needed it. That's because there was so much tape getting not stolen, but what kid's not going to say, every kid needs clear tape.
And there's a lot of parents who go, well, why can't the provide it? They can, you're going to pay for it though.
You can. Yeah. But if you think about it, it's just like pucks, right? People get crazy about pucks. I'm like, well, pucks cost like $2.50 a piece. Right. And if you want to get, a hockey wraparound logo, they're even more.
Right. So, well, I said, you're going to pay for it. If you pay, if camp is really expensive, you know why? Real quick before we go on, I want to say this too. Like, look, there is some adversity training that comes with going to a camp in general, but like what Mike's talking about, it's important. Your kids should be checking their equipment anyway. Like, I don't think they need to have the 4-inch short shin guards and be made fun of to learn that lesson, right? Like that's part of parenting is your kid should be learning to check your equipment. I agree with you.
Yeah, and it wasn't even so much of being fun of as much as it is you're just not prepared, so you can't play.
Right. Well, and the other thing I wanted to say too is just this is a quick tip for parents. If you send your kid with uncomfortable skates, you got to understand what's going to happen and play this out. It's not just uncomfortable until they break them in. It's your kid's going to get blisters on their feet and really hurt themselves, and that's going to last the entire camp. And they're going to get worse, even if you go back to your old skates or old equipment. So just be mindful of new equipment. And if you're sending them with new equipment, let's just say you're doing that, send them with some of the old equipment too. Send them with their old skates too, just in case if it's that uncomfortable. This is not the time to break in certain pieces of equipment. I'm not talking helmets or elbow pads or shin guards. All right, but your skates, maybe even gloves to some level, just have a thought and make sure you pack the older equipment as well, because it can become miserable. Right. I mean, I have seen kids really tear up their feet trying to break equipment, and it's not worth it, and it's painful. So I just wanted to say that, have them bring both sets of equipment, and trust me, yes, I know how hard it is for kids to try new equipment when they're comfortable with the old equipment. I had a kid on my team this past year who, for whatever reason, wouldn't wear his nylon socks. Like he wouldn't do it. And then one time we tried joking with him, if you don't wear these, you're not going to look good in the team picture. And then he started doing it out of nowhere. So I know kids are superstitious, but just think about that. It's not the time to break in new skates the day one of camp, right? Maybe the second session once a week, twice a week till they're comfortable, but just be mindful of that.
Yeah, or be proactive. Like I remember, the parents that used to come to my camps from Norway would appreciate this, right? That they would send their kids over with an empty bag. It was so much cheaper to buy stuff here at the time. Right. They would just buy everything here, and then they do a day of camp and they'd be out for 3 days. I'm like, you just did a 6-day camp and you've been on the ice twice because you're hurt, like you can't compete. And so be conscious of it. If you're going to do new skates, which is great for the summer, then get them 3 weeks earlier. Get the kids out there for public session. Make sure they're skating around in them, or do a clinic or two. But don't assume that this is the greatest time for me to buy all the new gear for them, and then they're going to break it in because they're going to get so much ice time. Well, they're not going to get any ice time if they can't stand it.
Right. And again, parents, just, I have had blisters on my ankles and feet. Not to get descriptive, but I play through them, and I have ripped my feet to shreds to the point I could barely walk. Because I love playing so much, right? Like I remember sitting on the couch one time with like, a bloodied ankle. Like, wow, I really can't skate. So just it's not a toughen up situation. Your kid can really get hurt to a point they can't play if you don't think about this. Anyway, let's keep moving. I've been there. I wanted to give that because I don't, sometimes you don't know. It's not like new shoes. It's not like new
Yeah.
shoes where it's a couple days and you're fine.
Yeah, so equipment's one thing, right? So that's like its own category. Like just get the bag out, look through everything, clean out all the junk that's in there, and then just prepare. Is your kid old enough to take a shower? Do they even wash up after? Make sure they have not one towel, maybe two, or and talk to the kid. If it's a sleepaway camp and it's in a dormitory, most likely there's nothing there, right? And you get those lists. Most camps, sleepaway camps are great. They give you a list of bring a pillow, bring sheets, bring extra, a blanket, bring towels, whatever, that kind of stuff. But then all the things other than when you're packing, right? I've seen camps where parents bring in, full mini fridges, and they stack it up, and the kid, it's in their kid's dorm room. He's like the most popular kid in the camp. He's got,
Yeah. You want a soda? I got soda.
I got soda, I got Cliff Bars, I got Gatorade, whatever you want, But I think, so think about that. How is the dorm set up? What can you do to pre-pack things? The same idea though. If you throw everything in there, don't be surprised if on night one all your snacks for your kids are gone.
Yeah.
Because of the other 20 people in the dorm that didn't pack. And you got to think about that kind of stuff and just understand the circumstances around what you're doing when you go to camp.
Right. And I always say this too: you don't assume your 15-year-old is going to shower every day. Just don't.
I
personal hygiene.
I remember my kid, my son's does a lot of scouting, and you're like, oh, we pack for the weekend, you pack like a huge backpack worth of change of socks, change of pants, and then you come back that it's the same, it's never even open. I'm like, did anybody get changed? Like, I don't know, I wore the same pants for 4 days in a row. Okay, well, whatever. Whatever you got to do. But yeah, don't assume that they're taking showers and cleaning and washing up and changing into the latest brand new pair of shorts you got them, because most likely it's going to be the same pair of shorts for the week.
Yeah, I would just say this, look, young boys and girls will be young boys and girls, and there's a lot of learning that takes place at that age, no matter what you do to prepare them. And to be honest with you, a lot of learning has to take place. But
no, it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just part of the process.
Well, this is what I remember, Mike. I remember not doing a lot of what I was told, but I was always listening. So like now as an adult, I look back like, wow, I'm really glad my mom said this to me every day, even though I didn't do it till I was 23. I knew to do it when I became an adult because I was told every day. so look, personal hygiene. This sounds weird to talk about, but it's important, and so you need to teach your kids that, or at least be talking to them, because I have seen young adults have no clue, and it's embarrassing. Like you have people walk into interviews and it's like, no, like the answer is just no, because the way you're prepared here, right? So again, parents, this is something that I've had to kind of meditate on myself. Of, okay, I've told my son this 55,000 times and it hasn't happened. But then I remind myself, Lee, your parents did the same thing, and it took 10 years, but then you started doing it. So I kind of just like, you're doing the best you can to prepare them, but just don't be the cool parents like, hey man, you do you. You don't want to shower, no, shower every day, get that stank off you. All right, because the truth is, you're not going to find a partner later on in your life if you don't do that. All right,
the hockey school, and sometimes it's fun that you again, it's not nobody's. You don't want, and again, this all really encompasses what school are you going to, what is because there are some in some places where they're going to have time where maybe you don't want you're like, okay, what is the showering situation, and then when can they get cleaned up, and when, just want to know all those kind of things. Is showering, like when we were at the hockey school in Norway, showering for the guys was jumping into the fjord, and
yeah,
and swimming.
Old school.
Like, is that the same? I've been in the cleanest water in the world. Is that the same? Right. It's not technically the same, but
it's
for tonight, For tonight, the fact that you cleanse your body will go for
it was the cleanest water in the world until you kids all jumped in. Now it's completely
all
contaminated.
all these dead fish laying around you.
Yeah,
But I think
listen, teenage boys smell. Let's just be honest about it.
yeah. So again, I think that just encompasses, and then all the little things, right? Do you know, like I've seen kids go and they're dying in the dorm rooms, like not having a fan, or making sure you bring a fan to the room with you, making sure you have, maybe the little extras that they normally wouldn't have. I mean, the one kid, find out what the policy is of the place too. Don't be, like me, I tend to think the opposite way. Like, I don't want you rooming up with the guy that brings his Xbox and, all the games, and you sit in the room all night playing Xbox. Like and actually Daryl Belfry, who we had on as a guest, used had a great, analogy in what he did with his daughter was like giving them goals of saying, hey, listen, when you go to this camp, I want you to come out knowing 3 new people you've never known before. And I want to know about them. Like I want you to initiate the fact that I want you to know about 3 new people that you can tell me about at the end of the camp or the end of the weekend. And I think that's great. Like that's all goes back to, preparing your child for success. And going to whether it's a sleepaway camp or a day camp, you can coach them. You're the adult. So you can coach them into things that they might think are kind of wacky and stupid. But I guarantee you, if you lay these positive seeds in there and they come back and they use them, they'll appreciate the fact that you told them and remembered.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to reiterate again. I'm learning this being a youth coach. Even as a professional coach, I said in pro hockey, when I tell a player something, I expect it to be done correctly 2 or 3 times after we try it. Right. And that's actually not an unrealistic expectation. These guys have so much muscle memory built up that, it's a lifestyle, right? Like I'm teaching you, do it. Youth hockey, it might take 10 to 15 times or ice sessions before they even get close to thinking about it. I had to learn patience with that. But I want to say this again. I was always listening as a kid. But I think we underestimate sometimes that even though our kids fight us and push back, they do hear us, right? But they have to hear these messages sometimes hundreds of times. Let's be honest about it. So I don't give up on that. And I kind of might take this thought process of I just need to do the best I can so that when my kids are 18, 21, 25, whatever, I can look back and say, look, I definitely did the best I could, right, as a parent. And then you got to let them live their life, right? Some parents have a problem letting go of that. All right, let's split this up into day camp versus overnight camp. We'll start with day camp. So just what qualifies as day camp, you drop them off and you pick them up every day. There's no obviously overnight scenario here. Mike, I think with day camp, what I would just want to know is, what's the schedule? What's the lunch? Right. In addition to the tips that you had, what are you doing each week? What are the themes? And what is there anything I should be talking about with my kid when he comes at home and I pick him up, or should it be quiet in the car? Right. Like I think that's what it goes into a good day camp is just, you say communication, understanding of this is what we're doing this week.
Yeah, and then is it pizza every single day for lunch? Like what can I pack a lunch for the kid? Can I, can I make it somewhat nutritional? Can I make it somewhat where they have some energy, as they go throughout the day? Is because of the way the ice schedule is lunch at like 10:30 in the morning? Like, cause sometimes you'll see they're like, oh, ice lunch. I'm like, well, what do you mean lunch? Well, we can't fit it in because their next ice session is at 12:30.
McDonald's is still serving egg McMuffins. What are you giving them lunch for it?
Right. So you got to understand that. But I will say one thing going back a little bit too, is that a day camp or sleepaway camp, and you're working with 10 and under players, one of the biggest things you might want to do is make sure they know how to tie their own skates and they know how to tie them properly. Because what happens is instructors they hate tying skates and they're not there really to tie skates. And the counselors will tie skates. I get it. I mean, I made my best tips in the summer as a teenager tying skates. I mean, I felt like I was at a golf club or something. Like, oh, thank God you tied my kid's skates all week. I'm like, yeah. And
I don't know how to break it to you. That's a New York City, Connecticut thing. That doesn't happen.
Oh, is it really? You don't tip for tying skates?
People don't tip. I was never tipped for doing that.
Oh, I used to get tipped all the time. I see that.
You must be in a really nice place, Mike.
We're in really good country club environment here, I guess.
Yeah.
But even when but the fact is having your child know how to tie their own skates and feel comfortable with it. And then if they need to, tighten them or whatever, the people are there for. But so sleepaway, day camp, tie your own skates, know how to put your own shin guards on,
Great point.
know how to tape your shin,
Yeah.
all the pieces.
Just know how to put your equipment on. That's a great point.
Yeah, because you might miss.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you're like, because there'll be 7 kids that don't know how to do it. So all 7 of those kids, it depends on who got to first, will be
Right.
late getting on the ice anyway.
Right.
So,
And
but I think, your day camp starts off. You get dropped off. Are you dropping your kid off and walking inside? Are you dropping the kid off and like, see you later?
Yeah.
Thank God you're out of here. Jump out of the car and go. And I think too, and understand on the day camp side, is your kid going there with friends? Or no, are they coming in blind? Are they a kid that doesn't know anybody at all? And then what are you doing to prepare them for that? Or are they coming with a group of friends? And conversely, what are you doing to prepare them for that? Because what happens is if you stick your kid in a day camp with a bunch of his friends, they don't meet any other friends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so a lot of it's like, hey, wouldn't it be a cool goal that you guys bring in other kids, like meet other children and be like a conduit for growth for the week? I know it sounds stupid, like, well, Mike, who gives a crap about that? I do. I love that kind of stuff. I love when I see groups of these packs of boys, especially boys, but these packs of children that can bring in more kids into their inner circle and not just be isolated in the week of camp. Right. And go through in a bubble and really at the end of the day leave the
life skill. Look, obviously, I didn't say this at the top, but like a great camp's going to teach you more than just hockey. Right, it's going to teach you life skills, right? And look, there is a major problem right now with young adults getting out of college and not being able to communicate at all because they never had to. They've been texting or they've been on the phone or on the Xbox, as you said, their whole life. Which I'm not looking down on technology. That's not their fault. They have access to this technology. I don't blame anybody for that, but it's kind of on us as adults and maybe leaders to say, okay, no, you need to talk. You need to communicate and learn how to talk to somebody else, which is not easy to do at 15. I think what ends up happening a lot of times, Mike, is not even just 15, but in your formative years, we go, oh, they'll get it. And, suddenly they're 18, they've never talked to anybody, right? So meeting new people, conversing with new people, interacting with new people is a major skill set if you want your kid to get ahead right now. And I love what Belfry said. Yeah, go meet 2 or 3 other kids, and I want to know who they are. Make some best friends for life. I think another aspect of a camp that I would look for, Mike, is the well-roundedness of the hockey, right? I want a camp where my kid's going to have to play forward, defense, potentially even goalie at some point, and really have to experience the game from other points of view. Maybe there's an offense week, a defense week, or things like that. A skating week, right?
Yeah, well,
I like that.
Overall skill development. That's what you really
Right.
camp for anyway, right? It's not to learn how to be the best left winger so much. It's really to learn how to be the best hockey player. And I think that's where the camps, that's where it differentiates itself, right? If I was going to a team camp, that's what training camps are for. Training camps for teams are to build your team. Skills camps and day camps and sleepaway camps are to build your skill.
Right.
Your ability to be, so even think about, you don't even have to be, if you have a friend or friends that go to the camp, they don't even have to be at the same level as you, because it really is irrelevant what their level is. It's what you're bringing into the camp, and I think, so the biggest thing is, can I go to a camp that my kid loves going to and he has friends in and can make friends, and don't worry about the skill level of it, because the skill level is going to come from what your own skill level it is. You're going to put into it what you get out of it, or get out of it what you put into it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the kid goes there and they're having fun and there's good instruction and there's a good syllabus. There's a good blueprint for what they do.
And you should look for that as a parent.
Then I want to know, is it like, what is the day camp that I signed up for? Is it just you're winging it? Like every single day, you don't know what you're doing, or is
that's a day
plan, or is there a plan?
Look, and I've been sending my kids to camps. The best camps have, here's what we're doing. Here's the theme. There's always a theme for the week. Here's your lunch menu. Here's how the day runs. I look for that. And again, look, cost could be an issue for certain people. And I totally understand that. And so sometimes you really do just need a place for your kid to go for the summer because you got to work. And I get it. I totally get it. But just you can take a look for these things. There are very affordable camps that run really well. Michael, just take a look at the time. We only have a few minutes left. So I want to dive into overnight camp. First disclaimer for overnight camp that we're not going to fully dive into. As a parent, you should see if this camp is co-ed and decide if you need to have any conversations with your son or daughter about going to a co-ed overnight camp. That's kind of where I'm going to leave that because everybody's got to do that their own way. But I would never send your son or daughter to a camp that's overnight and just conveniently ignore the fact that it's co-ed. Just having grown up in the world, you might have a problem. So just have whatever conversation you need to have with your kids about being in a co-ed environment overnight. Aside from that, Mike, what else should you be looking for?
Yeah. So again, the real important piece is the structure and the communication, right? What are your policies and procedures to know where my kid is at every time of the day? What does the buddy system look like? If my son gets hurt on the ice, what's what's happening?
Like, are they camps, right? Not in
yeah,
home and away. Yeah, that's
right. Are you just sending him off the ice? Because I'm not there. Like I'm I'm at work. Like, so I have no idea what's happening, can you, to me, like the best hockey schools that I've worked at and been like even a counselor at and a director at are the ones that build in time for, kids be able to call home. Like a lot of kids are going to be homesick. Even the ones you don't think are going to get homesick are going to get homesick.
Right.
And, you don't want to shame them into wanting to call their parents. But give time for them to do that in a I don't want to say like a safe space, but give them time they can do it where the people aren't like, oh look, Mike's calling his mommy again. Like do it in a way where they can do it respectfully and encourage them to do it if they want to do it. Because the goal for you as a camp director is to have them to come back to camp. Right. I want your money. So the only way I'm going to get your money is to make you feel like you're really having a great time. So I think just having those little resources of knowing if it's co-ed or not, who are the counselors, who watches the kids at night, are there high school kids that watches the kids overnight, or is I'm like me when I was the director of Nike hockey schools, I literally sat in the hallway of the dormitory and I just watched doors. Oh, I hear a door. Oh, I hear a door. Don't come out of your room. Where are you going? And it was
just straight like Benelli.
It was like from 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. It was just like vigilance of where are the kids? Like that's your number one job. And I mean, I've had kids sneak out. I did a hockey school up in Waterville Valley, New Hampshire one year. And I found the next day the kids had gotten out of their room on the first floor and because they saw a bear outside and all these kids from all these city kids. I'm like, what do you mean you saw a bear outside? Yeah. What are you crazy?
Don't like that towards the bear.
There was no, social media or cell phones back then. So, phenomenal. But I'm like, what do you mean you went outside to see the bear? Are you nuts? So, or they're feeding the bear outside the window.
That's funny. The bear came to see you too.
Yeah, the bear's like you just put French fries out your front window. What do you think's going to happen? But right. I think that's knowing where the camp is, how the structure is, what time they wake up, what are they eating, know the breakfast. Like if your kid hates eggs and all they sell is eggs in the morning, your son's not going to eat. They're not going to eat all week. And you're not going to find that out until Friday. What do you mean you didn't eat? Didn't you tell anyone? I didn't know to tell anyone. So just be prepared about, what with that sleep, especially the sleepaway stuff. Think about your son or daughter. Are they resilient at home on doing things on their own? And if no, right. then multiply that by 10 because most kids will just not say anything and live with it. And then you find out at the end of the week that they had a miserable time. Right. And they didn't have to. You could have fixed that on Monday.
Well, like above all, especially with overnight camp, again, the experience, the life experience you get from being away from home for the first time. Like I remember coaching college, man, and you get kids who have never left home. And by week 2 of the season, or not even season, by week 2 of school, like they're really bad. I mean, hurting bad because they're homesick. They don't know how to take care of themselves. It's completely overwhelming. And then they have to perform on the ice. Right. Yeah. So my point to you is like, it's a great experience for your kids to do this, even if it's for 1 week, just to get the idea of, oh, wow, maybe I do need my parents every once in a while to help me out. And then, they come home with their tail between you, like, you get to look at them right in the eye and be like, yeah, huh? You like the food I make now, don't you? Start the bookending this episode. I'm teasing, obviously, but look, the truth is this, at the end of the day, no matter what camp your kid goes to, you want them to enjoy it. You want them to come home saying, hey, I made these best friends for life. I had this great experience and I'm never going to forget. As you said, Mike, if you're a camp, somebody who runs a camp, you want them coming back. I want to come back to this camp next year because I had so much fun. I want to see my friends again. We all see that. We all know that. We've all probably experienced something like that. You want that for your kids too. And look, I have an overwhelming urge to protect my children and to try and help them all the time. But I also try to remind myself, you got to let them fall. You got to let them fall and get back up and learn to do that. But in a camp environment, they don't need to fall and not have somebody call me that my kid got injured. I don't need to actively think now's a great time to break in new skates and hurt my own kid. These are just some great tips and tricks to think about for camp in general, which most of these camps, as you said, when we're recording this in mid-June, right? These are starting up soon, right? So that's why we want to do this today. Go ahead, Mike. I don't know how much time you have. I want to make sure you get any.
No, I just say, do you want them to fail and fall at 875 a week? I don't know. I'm like, there's cheaper ways to do it, right? So right. I think it's just.
Oh, wait. We should amend that. They're gonna fail and fall already. So don't add to the failure. It's like don't let them trip even more. Like
right.
Look, we've all had an awkward camp moment in our lives, right? Or we've all had girlfriend boyfriends that are just at camp, and you have no idea what you're talking about, right? So like you said, they're gonna fail anyway. So just set them up for success and how to learn that adversity. And for 875 a week, it's a great point. Any other final thoughts, Mike, before we close this one out?
No, I think it's the same as anything else going into a season is going into a camp, right? Be prepared, have your list, check your list off, check it twice, and just understand that it can't all be about the fact that you want to see your kid be an NHL All-Star at the end of the week. Right. That everything's a process. That 1 week's not going to. We've talked about this on previous podcasts. Of you don't expect that 1 week of hockey school to change your life in skill wise for the better for your kid. It's an ongoing process. It's one piece of the process, and then use it the way you think the camp is best suited for your child. Is it a learning experience? Is it a skill development experience? Is it a get out of the house for the first time experience? Whatever it is for your child, just make it the best experience it can be based off of the goals you have for that week.
And I'll say this, I'll try and spin this positive. The goal, in addition to everything we said, the kid should be excited for the season. Whenever this experience ends, you want them raring to go. I cannot wait for hockey season to get here because I had these great times this summer. You don't want the exhausted, like more hockey, really. Like you just got to be mindful of that. And that's something you need to be deciding now too, Mike. If your kid needs a break from hockey right now, you really need to think about that, because putting them in a 2-week, 4-week, month something of hockey, I mean, you're going to burn them out, right?
I think about that the same way. I just came back from a coaching conference for 3 days, and I wish the season started today.
Right.
Like I like that. My hockey school that I went to, like my hockey camp, my coaching hockey camp, was like the greatest experience I could have, and I want to be on the ice today.
Right.
So think about that timing. When is it? Where is it? What are you getting out of? But most importantly, is it driving my son or daughter to want to drive to the rink? Right. And that's unbelievable. If you can do that, and find skill development sprinkled in there, and find social development sprinkled in there, a home run. And and I will say this before we sign off here, is there more camps that provide that than not? They wouldn't exist, right? If the camp wasn't there for 27 years, most likely they're doing the right thing if they've been there that long. And I would embrace that.
We need to make an Our Kids Play Hockey summer camp. That's just going to be for parents. That's the way. It's just. Well,
I designate Christy as the director because she's not here to raise her hand, but
she's director. She can do the announcements in the morning.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's a lot of things she could do. She could keep us in line. So anyway, look, Meg, thanks for giving us some wisdom. Again, we always talk about this. I learn a lot. I learn a ton from you. Like I'm getting into the years now where my kids might want to do some of this stuff. So I'll always have this episode to go back on. But look, that's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. No matter what your kids are doing this summer, whenever you're listening to this, we hope they enjoy it. We know you're all doing the best you can. Again, if you're listening to this podcast, we obviously have some sort of shared mentality, right? And if you have any questions, concerns, comments, you want to ask Mike, myself, Christy a question, you can email us, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. We always love hearing from you. Or check out our Facebook page, Our Kids Play Hockey, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. I've said it enough times now, so you got to do that. For Mon Mills, like 50 times so people understand it. That's going to do it for the episode. You all have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we will see you next time on Our Kids Play Hockey. Have a great day, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.